Welcome to Fast Keto. I'm your host, Ketogenic Girl. Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of Fast Keto. I am so excited to get to be recording another episode. It's been weeks since I've been able to sit down and just record. I've really missed it. I think podcasting is pretty much my favorite thing now, and it's so good to be home after traveling for 6 weeks. I was in London meeting with some fantastic people. I got to meet with some of my favorite people in the keto space, including Martina Slayarova, Jimena de la Serna, Dr. Asim Malhotra. Was fantastic to get to meet with him in person, and Emily McGuire, Low Carb Genesis, and I got to go to Vegas. I got to meet with my publishers. I had a great time visiting some friends and family, Colorado. It was just a whirlwind trip. And then I joined my parents, and my husband joined as well in Italy because they were doing a holiday there. And Prague is not too far. It's only about an hour and 45-minute, 2-hour flight from here. So we went down and joined them in Italy, but it was 6 weeks of just a lot of fun visiting with so many of my favorite people, but just being on the go quite a bit. And it's really nice. There's nothing like extended travel to make you appreciate things like being at home and just putting your clothes in drawers and having access to laundry on a regular basis, and so many things about being home that, I just love. I think I'm a little bit of a homebody, and I've become more of a homebody in the last few years because I've been traveling so much that when I'm home, when I'm on the road, I just crave being here so much. And it just feels really good to be able to get back to some of the things that I know make me feel my best. And some of those things for me are my morning routines. Every day in the morning, I love to get up, do some journaling, do some yoga, do some meditation, do some visualizing. There are certain rituals that I have in the morning that really set the tone for my whole day. And I just find it really difficult to do some of that stuff when I'm traveling and on the road. I recommend you check out my 28-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge. What it is a full 28-day meal plan and program that includes all the recipes and foods that you need to eat for 28 days. I call it the 28-day challenge because it's just a great way to get past all the information overwhelm. There's so much information online about keto, and this way you can just get past that. All the macros are calculated for you to get into a state of ketosis, and I was able to do that by using tried and true proven macro approaches that I've developed over several years of doing the keto diet and working with over 3,000 people to date on this program. Our Ketogenic Girl community in the members group is incredible. Everyone in there is so supportive, providing helpful tips and hints and sharing their successes and struggles and challenges as well in the group together, because we're all in this together gaining more health. The 20-day challenge program comes with weekly shopping lists, meal plan overviews, a guide to testing yourself and interpreting the results for keto, and it also comes with my support and coaching in our members only group. So go check it out at ketogenicgirl.com. It's the 28-day challenge, and any purchase of the 20-day meal plans gets you access into the challenge. You can choose to get the program either soft copy or with a printed copy as well. It's printed on beautiful paper, spiral bound, and I ship it out to you the same day. So go check it out, the 28-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge at ketogenicgirl.com. A few disclaimers. By listening to this podcast, you agree not to use this podcast as medical advice, as I am not a qualified healthcare provider. The information presented on this podcast is for educational purposes only. Ketogenic Girl is not qualified to provide medical advice. Consult your own physician for any medical issues that you may be having. This entire disclaimer also applies to any guests or contributors to this podcast. Prior to beginning a ketogenic diet, you should undergo a full health screening with your physician to confirm that a keto diet is suitable for you and to rule out any conditions or contraindications that may pose risks or that are incompatible with a ketogenic diet. A keto diet may or may not be appropriate for you if you have any kind of health condition, whether known to you or unknown. So you must consult your physician to find this out. Anyone under the age of 18 should consult with their physician and their parents or legal guardian. I'm back now after 6 weeks, and I'm here and I'm getting to podcast, and I'm doing a Q&A episode today, a special episode just with your questions. And I put out requests sometimes for questions out there because I get a lot of the same questions over and over again. And so I have created resources, like I have a free ebook, I have FAQs and things, but it's nice to be able to share some of the replies to those things on a podcast episode. And so I'm not sure how many questions I'll be able to get to today. So I might do a part 2 of this as well, because I don't want to go on and on and on for an hour just answering questions, but I'll probably keep this one closer to about half an hour and do a part 2 episode with more of your questions. We have some really exciting episodes coming up next week with Megan Ramos, the fasting expert at Intensive Dietary Management and also a friend of mine. And we have Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, who's coming on, and she's going to talk all about protein and take your questions on that. So we have some really fun Q&A episodes coming up in the next few weeks that you can look forward to checking out. So today is just you and me chatting about some questions that I get on a regular basis, and also some random questions that are just popping up on my feed. So I wanted to go through some of them. The first one is, what supplements do you take? I do get this question quite often, and people ask me if I take supplements, what kind. And daily, I like to take a whole foods sourced multivitamin. I take vitamin C every day. I take magnesium every day before bed. And every day, I also take a bifidobacteria probiotic in the form of a pill. And I also like to take prebiotic foods. But in terms of like oral supplements, those are the ones that I take. And lately, one of the things that I've added in the past 6 months or so has been doing gelatin and collagen daily. And let me tell you, this has completely revolutionized my hair and nails and skin. I've been adding it, and I've been posting a little bit about my Level Up Latte, which is just coffee with some added collagen or gelatin sheets. And you froth it up either with a handheld immersion blender or with just a standard blender. And also add a little bit of coconut oil in there too. I'm not a big fan of doing the boosted coffees and bulletproof coffees and things, but I do like to add a little bit of coconut oil in there just for some flavor, because just with gelatin or collagen on its own, it doesn't taste as good. But if you like it just plain with gelatin or collagen, it tastes fantastic. I usually add about half a scoop, 1 or 2 tablespoons into my coffee in the morning, and I froth it up. And when I use gelatin sheets, when I'm able to find those, I just get generic ones from the grocery store, local supermarket, and I can find them just about anywhere. And I find that those make it super, super frothy. There's something about the gelatin sheets that when you dissolve them in the coffee and froth them up, I'll leave the blender on for about 30 to 60 seconds, and it gets so creamy and frothy. And putting in about a teaspoon of coconut oil if you want that flavor, it is so, so yummy. But I recently went to a new hairdresser when I was in Denver, and she's like, wow, you're so lucky. Your natural roots that are growing in are so healthy, and you have really thick hair, don't you? And I was like, I've never heard that in my life. What? And she's like, yeah, your roots are just like so healthy and strong. And I've always had sort of finer hair. To hear that my root regrowth was looking so healthy and thick just blew my mind. And I have been having the same thing with my nails. I had to stop going for manicures, and I used to get gel manicures every once in a while, and I had to stop going because my nails have been growing so fast. Part of it has also been because I've been increasing my protein. I'll talk a little bit more about that. But if any of you follow my Instagram, I've been doing higher protein levels. I did a big high protein experiment. I've been eating more protein. I think that combined with the added protein from collagen and gelatin is just, in terms of supplements, as a whole food supplement, I don't think you can get anything better than gelatin or collagen. I just find that gelatin, if you get a no-name brand from a health food store or just the gelatin sheets, it's like a fraction of the cost of some of the collagen you see out there, which is in these pretty containers and marketed, and, it looks fantastic. It costs like 10 times as much, and you're getting basically the same thing. I have heard actually Sarah Ballantyne on her podcast say that gelatin itself is actually even better than the collagen peptides. And you can listen to the podcast that she did on that if you search for Sarah Ballantyne and collagen peptides versus gelatin. I think I can put that in the show notes too. But those are the supplements that I take on a daily basis. I find that my keto diet is extremely nutritious, but I'm just someone who likes to supplement additionally with certain things. And I also do add sodium to most days. I add it to my water when I'm having added magnesium. So I take those every day, and that's what works for me. It's not something that I'm recommending because I have no qualifications to recommend things to anyone. But, you asked and I answered. That's what I do personally. And I think there are some great supplements out there. And the more that I've been learning about biochemistry, some of you may know that I've gone back to school to study a postgrad degree in science. And the more I'm learning about the importance of cofactors in enzymatic processes, it's just been blowing my mind how important it is to have those daily vitamins. There are certain vitamins like biotin, niacin. They actually are critical parts of our enzymatic function. And without them, I never really realized that that's why we need vitamins so much, is they actually are cofactors for enzymes. And enzymes do so much to speed up processes that are happening in the body. They can take a process that they can accelerate the rate of a process by up to 1,000,000-fold. And so many of these are essential chemical processes that happen in the body. And that's why vitamins are so, so important, and why we feel our best when we're making sure we're getting all of them. So if you're eating real whole foods and nutrient-dense foods, you're probably doing great and you may not need to supplement. But you can also have your levels tested to see where you're at. There's so many online sources and different ways of testing. You can go to your doctor. I regularly have my vitamin levels checked, and they're really maintained well for my whole foods ketogenic diet. But I also just like to supplement with some of those things, especially probiotic foods, because I don't eat as much yogurt as I used to. And that goes into the next question. On keto, low carb, high fat, can you have yogurt regular, 3.5% plain from time to time? What are your thoughts on that? So I'm a huge fan of yogurt, and Greek yogurt especially. I absolutely love it. And a lot of people think the carb count is too high. I think it really just depends on how you are personally sort of spending your carbs that day. For me, I don't eat a lot of high carb foods at all. I don't eat a lot of carbs in general. So once in a while, when I want to have a treat, for me, there are certain things that I go to, and those things often include Greek yogurt. I really love plain Greek yogurt. I love just having it on its own, and sometimes adding little things to it. I think in the past I used to add cocoa nibs to it, or some raw almonds or nuts or hemp seeds. There's different things you can add in there, and it makes for a really nice treat or dessert if you ever want something like that. But I always go with anything that's sort of over 3% fat, anywhere from 3 to 10%. And the higher fat percentage, usually the carb is lower, but the total carb count tends to be around the same. Just be aware that you're going to get around 4 grams of carbs, somewhere up to 7 grams per serving. So if you have too much of it, you probably will go over the 20 to 30 grams. And if you are like many people, that's really that limit that studies have shown where people go in and out of ketosis really is around that 20 to 30 gram of total carb rate. So it may be different for you depending on your activity level or your personal health, but that is where it tends to be for, science has shown in most studies, and I've seen for myself and in many people that I've worked with. So you can really overdo it, but as an indulgence, I think it's one of the best kinds that you can have out there. There's so many keto treats out there. A lot of them are much higher in carb or have a lot of sweeteners added, and just plain whole fat Greek yogurt is so, so delicious. Oh, I think one of my favorite things that I would put in it is walnuts. I don't know why. There's a combination of walnuts and Greek yogurt that is just so, so good. And adding in, those things, like I mentioned, make it a really healthy form of protein as well. And it's a great protein to have too. So protein and fat, it does have some carb, but I do think that Greek yogurt, you can find a way to fit it in to your keto diet for sure. Hey guys, just taking a really quick break to talk about the 28-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge. If you're interested in doing a ketogenic diet for yourself, it's a great place to start. I teach you everything about how to follow a keto diet to get yourself into nutritional ketosis, and it includes 28 days of meal plans. It comes with weekly shopping lists, how to interpret results, how to test yourself, a complete guide to getting started on keto. If you've been keto for a while and you're just not getting the results that you want to in terms of your health or fat loss, or you are brand new to keto, the 28-day challenge is a great option because it also comes with my free coaching and support in our members Facebook group, and you can post any questions that you have about the meal plans, about keto, and I am there supporting you. We have an amazing community in our group. I like to call it the happiest place online because everybody in there is so excited about following keto, about having found something that really works well for them. And everyone in there is just so kind, caring, generous, and supportive. And it's a really fun place to be and hang out. So if you like more info on it, you can find it at ketogenicgirl.com, and it's the 28-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge. And now back to our interview. Next question, how do you make the best coffee? I don't really know. I think the best coffee for me comes from my local cafe that I go to here in Prague, but I just got one of these lever coffee machines because I think making the best coffee is making espresso from really, really fresh coffee beans. If you have a grinder and you grind them right before you're about to use them, and then if you have a lever coffee machine or something like that, that you can use pressure to push the water through and make really nice espresso. I've been learning so much about coffee. I only started drinking coffee a few years ago when we moved to Prague, and there's something about coffee in Europe that it's just on another level that I can't really compare it to coffee that I have, say, back home at certain, coffee chains and things. And I'm sure many of you feel the same way. But I have recently decided to get a lever coffee machine because I love coffee. I love the benefits that it has for boosting metabolism. I know that there's a lot of bad mouthing about coffee. A lot of, people talk down about coffee and how you should eliminate it and you shouldn't have caffeine. It really depends on you and the person, the state of your adrenals and whatnot. But I personally love coffee. I think it's a fantastic way to boost your metabolism, and it can boost your metabolism by anywhere from 150 to 300 calories per day, which is why you often see it in all of these weight loss pills, which I would never, ever, ever recommend anyone use. But you can just boost your metabolism a little bit by drinking coffee if that's something that you like. I don't think you should feel so bad about drinking coffee or having part of your diet or caffeinated teas either. But to answer your question, the best coffee, I think, really is from lever machines, those espresso machines, not the capsule kinds, but the ones where you push that water through, and you usually have to go to a cafe, or you can find that at home if you get a little lever machine. And they have really inexpensive ones that you can just, process yourself. And it just takes a little bit of strength to use, a little bit of putting your arm into it. How many carbs maximum should you eat at each meal? So that question depends on how many times per day you eat. So just divide your total goal of carb for the day. If it's 30 grams and you eat 3 times a day, then your max should be 10 grams per meal. And if you eat twice a day, it should be 15. And if you do more, 25 to 20 grams, then per meal, it should be somewhere between 6 to 10 grams for that meal. So do you think roasted pumpkin seeds are suitable to stay in ketosis? This is a very seasonally appropriate question, considering it is the time of pumpkin everything. And I love pumpkin. I just think that you should count total carbs because, seeds and nuts are not the best thing if you're in fat loss mode. I would prefer them if you're in maintenance mode. But I just find that seeds and nuts tend to have a lot of carb, and they also tend to trigger the hedonic response to food because they're really concentrated in carbs. So that's why a lot of people struggle with just having a few nuts. When a food is really concentrated in carbohydrate, it can trigger this hedonic response where your brain starts to crave them or that food. And it's the same with nut butters. There are certain foods that are just, there's a reason, it's not that they're keto or they're not keto or they're not considered keto. Most nut butters are because they have a great fat, protein, and carb, profile. But if a food or certain food, especially a carb-rich food, is very concentrated in carbs for a small amount, it's carb dense, you could say, then it can trigger that response in people. And it may not be that way for everyone, but I'm one of those people who's very sensitive to carbs. So there's certain foods that I just avoid because they trigger that response for me. And some of those things are nuts, coconut butter, coconut. They trigger that response for me where I just don't find any amount to be satisfying. Like I want all the nuts or all the coconut. So I'd rather stick to foods that are more satiating for me and less carb dense. So really any food can potentially be keto as long as it's below a certain carb density. And not everyone will agree with that. It's just my personal opinion. But carb density, I think if you're someone who is carbohydrate intolerant or very carbohydrate sensitive, you want to avoid carb dense foods because they're just going to make it harder for you to reach your goals, because you're going to find it hard to moderate the intake, and then you're going to feel bad afterwards about that intake, going over your carb limit and getting kicked out of ketosis. If that is a goal for you to be in ketosis, it's just a lot easier when you're avoiding really carb dense foods. What's your favorite keto breakfast? For me, it's definitely eggs benny. I always loved eggs benny growing up. I always thought of it as a really decadent special occasion breakfast. And one of the first things I learned going keto is that you can have it every day if you just have it without the English muffin. I love to have it just on its own over some smoked salmon or some prosciutto. And I just love hollandaise. And it's one of my favorite keto meals, let alone favorite keto breakfast, is really hollandaise over eggs and hollandaise over pretty much anything, because hollandaise is one of the most delicious things I think in the world, and it's keto. So why not enjoy it and indulge with it? Will collagen in the morning coffee break my fast? So I get a lot of questions like this, and basically you're either fasted or you're not fasted. There really is just two states. You're either fasted and you're not consuming any calories, or you're not fasted and you're consuming calories. So that's really just two modes. You can stay in a fasted state with non-caloric beverages, water, tea, coffee. Those kinds of things will not take you out of ketosis. And the same thing goes for bone broth, because it tends to be under 40 grams or 40 calories per cup. When you start having anything that has a caloric value to it, you're going to be going out of fasted mode and into fed mode. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being in a fed state. You don't have to be in a fasted state all the time. You need to be going between fed and fasted states all the time throughout the day. But if your goal is to maximize intermittent fasting, then just have collagen in your coffee during your eating window. If you have it outside of your eating window, technically you're opening your eating window. And that goes the same for anything you put in your coffee. You're drinking calories instead of eating calories, but because they're in a liquid form, we somehow think that it doesn't affect the fasted or fed state. But really, the definition of being in a fasted state is being without calories. So that's my personal interpretation of it. Other people may have different interpretations of it. And there are people out there who talk about how you can stay in a fasted state if you have below a certain amount of calories, if you have, fatty coffees or boosted coffees, that you're staying in a fasted state because you're not raising insulin as much. The truth is, any food, all foods raise insulin. Fat raises insulin less compared to carbohydrate and protein. But you are raising insulin, and insulin is an anabolic hormone. It is a growth hormone. It is an endocrine signaler that is responsible for building, storing fat. And because of that, having elevated levels of it prevents the body from being in a fasted state where you get those benefits from intermittent fasting. So if your goal is to do daily intermittent fasting, adding foods to your coffee like collagen. Collagen is mostly protein. It does have a caloric value to it. So technically you are going out of a fasted state, just maybe not by much. And on a ketogenic diet, studies have shown that we go back into a fasted state much more rapidly. So to answer your question, you may go out of a fasted state, but if you're on a ketogenic diet and your insulin to glucagon ratio is lower than if someone who's on a high carb diet, or you are more insulin sensitive from doing keto, from doing some of these protocols, it's very likely that you'll go back into a fasted state quite quickly after having that. So it really all depends on what works best for you. If adding some collagen to your coffee and a little bit of coconut oil in the morning means that you fast until, say, 1 or 2 p.m., and then you have a bigger meal then maybe that's a good strategy for you. It really just depends on what you want to achieve. If you're really looking to maximize intermittent fasting and the benefits from that, I would save having that collagen coconut oil coffee for when you open your eating window. And that's just personal opinion. So take it as you will and form your own opinions, because we have the ability to do so, all of us independently. And this is just my personal take. We'll be back in a moment, but I just want to take a moment to say something about collagen. I received a lot of questions from you guys about collagen ever since I started posting my Level Up lattes where I add collagen to coffee. The only real drawback to bone broth, where you get so much great collagen, it's one of the reasons that bone broth has become so popular in the last few years, is you get this great collagen from it, but it's a real hassle to make. Now, for any of you who don't know, collagen is a special protein that your body uses to repair itself, whether you're getting it to straighten out digestive problems, help your mood, soothe achy joints, repair and support your gut lining if you have leaky gut, or just get that glow back in your skin. Collagen is a huge piece of the puzzle. The problem is that most of us get very little of it from our diet unless we're making bone broth around the clock. Now, maybe you're using a collagen-based skin cream or you're adding collagen to your coffee like I do. That's better than getting none at all. But one of my biggest beliefs is that food beats supplements. The closer a nutrient is to nature, as you know, the easier it is for your body to break it down. That translates into superior healing. That's why I want to tell you about this bone broth from Kettle and Fire. They simmer grass-fed bones for 10 to 20 hours, extracting every drop of body-loving collagen straight from its most natural source. Their beef bone broth contains 20 grams of collagen per carton, and their chicken broth has 10. No wonder they have over 10,000 five-star reviews. The only real drawback, as I said, is making bone broth is a pain to make, but that's not going to be a problem for you because when you order from Kettle and Fire, they ship their broth straight to your door in specially sealed cartons. That way you can heat it up on your stove, sip it in your mug, or load up on collagen in 5 minutes or less. It's the next best thing to having a chef come in your house and cook it for you. Kettle and Fire has put together a very special offer for my listeners who want to experience the bone broth difference. You can go to kettleandfire.com. That's KETTLE and fire.com /ketogenic girl and use the code ketogenic girl in all caps for 15% off. The coupon code is automatically applied when you buy through this link, which I will put in the show notes. Another coffee question. What is better for coffee, cream, almond milk, or coconut milk? It really depends on your personal goals. And I found that abstaining from dairy is a better option when you're in fat loss mode. So sticking with unsweetened almond milk, unsweetened nut milks, and coconut oil, I find to be a little bit better. But also just having coffee plain or black, it's not a terrible option. I really like black coffee. I didn't really used to for a long time, but after I went off sweeteners last spring and my taste buds readjusted, I find that I enjoy black coffee. I'm actually having a black coffee right now, and it is delicious, and there's nothing in it, just coffee. There's nothing wrong with doing black coffee just, as it is, but I'm one of those people who always had a latte in their hand or some kind of sweetened beverage or drink, sugar-free, this or that, skinny, this or that, all throughout the day. So I know that we get so used to and accustomed to putting things in our drinks because it's such a warm, comforting thing, but we can make changes. And I find that just a black coffee is very warm and comforting to me, even if it doesn't have other things added into it. So that's a lot of coffee talk, a lot of coffee questions on here, but try to switch gears a little bit. Do you count all carbs in coffee made with full-fat coconut milk or cream? Okay, so coffee is a really big theme on today's episode. I might call this, the coffee episode. The last coffee question I'll answer in this episode, but yes, count all carbs in coffee if you're using full-fat milk or cream. Coconut has more carbs, but cream in your coffee also has trace carbs. So it's not really the trace carbs that matter in adding cream to your coffee. It's just the fact that it's a very fat dense, calorically dense thing that you can add to your coffee, and you can easily rack up 400, 500, 600, 700, 800 calories just adding some cream to your coffee. And that's like 2 steak meals. Like that's 2 steak dinners that you had just by adding some cream to your coffee. So yeah, count everything. If your goal is to be in ketosis, to burn fat, any of these, things that you're utilizing or different protocols you're utilizing based on what your goals are, unless you're doing intuitive eating and you're not counting anything, I would definitely, count the things, especially with coconut milk. It is higher in carb. Cream definitely is less. Are you using MCT oil, and how do you use it to maximize benefits? I personally like to use MCT oil in salad dressings. I like to put MCT oil on top of greens, and I use it as my preferred oil for salads, because it is very thermogenic. It has less calories in total in terms of impact on your body, because there's a thermogenic effect to MCT oil. There's so many other benefits as well to MCT oil, but I'm not someone who uses it every day. I never put it in my coffee. I never really added it to that many things. I just mostly use it with salad dressing. So some people like to cook with it too. I think it's a great oil for salad dressings because it's really nice and light, and it's something that you can incorporate, but you can do keto without MCT oil. I don't understand really the emphasis put on all of these different supplements and special foods and things. My approach to keto has just been go to any grocery store, just eat real food, and control your starches, control your carbs, and you'll probably be in ketosis. And it's not about adding MCT oil and ketone supplements and all these special magical things and elixirs. None of these things really make that big of an impact. Ketones have a caloric value. They have a value similar to the caloric value of alcohol. They're basically small pieces of fat. So if you are wanting to burn the fatty acids that are stored on your body, if you're adding tons and tons of fat to your diet with things like MCT oil, you may not be accessing as much of your body fat. If your goal is to minimize body fat percentage and maximize muscle mass and be in a fat burning state, if your goal is not to burn fat, if it's to maintain your weight, to continue to build energy, if it's more therapeutic, if it's more to do with mental clarity, then I think that's when those things like MCT oil and exogenous ketones, they can really help people. But if you have any amount of fat on your body, you can generate ketones. We are ketone making machines in the same way that our bodies generate saliva or generate anything else. Our bodies can generate so many ketones just from being in a state where you're controlling your intake of starches. If you have any fat on your body, if you don't have any fat on your body, if you're less than 5% body fat, you probably need to add a lot of fats to your diet in order to get to ketosis. But you don't really need to be adding all these things. As long as you have any fat on your body, you can make ketones, as long as you're not preventing your body from making ketones by not controlling for starches enough. So that's my take on that. Are you planning keto for men? I always have had men in the 20-day challenge program in my program, and a lot of men that follow my work as well. I think that everything that I do is for both men and women. Being a woman, I certainly probably emphasize women's health more because that's something I know more about personally, being one. But I have always had a lot of men on my program reading my books. All of this, everything that I share is just about ketosis as a metabolic state. It applies to anyone and everyone, whether, you're a female or you're male or you're an athlete or you're not, or, you're younger or you're older. All of these things are based on getting into nutritional ketosis, and living your life from a place of optimally supporting homeostasis in your body. And I think that the way to do that is through real foods. And it doesn't matter what gender you are, it's going to apply to both men and women. Can I drink on keto and stay in ketosis? Yes, you absolutely can. It depends on your carb threshold, but you're going to have your best luck just sticking to clear, like hard alcohol. The one that I use is vodka. If I am drinking, I'll have a vodka soda because you're also hydrating at the same time, and soda has oxygen in it too. So I like to just stick to tequila, vodka, maybe gin at times with soda, and drink it that way. And some people can drink wine and stay in ketosis. So you really have to test it out for yourself. For myself, I kind of gave up wine when I went keto, and you probably don't have to. I know there's a lot of great companies out there that provide, low carb wines and things. It just depends on your personal goals, but you can definitely stay in ketosis. I've had some pretty wild nights just out with friends and doing vodka sodas and waking up fully in ketosis the next day. So it depends, but it's probably not going to be the best thing for fat burning. So if you're drinking, every week, I'm more of an occasional drinker on special occasions and occasional social gatherings, but if you're someone who's drinking every week and your goal is to burn fat, it's definitely going to prevent you from doing that because your body will burn that off before burning off your body fat. So one of the things, like on my 20-day challenge, we don't have alcohol in the program because if people are really wanting to burn fat, you want to prioritize the burning of your own body fat as opposed to burning other sources of energy like alcohol. So I can't believe it, but we're already up to 31 minutes. So I'm really going to have to do a part 2 of this. And there are so many questions. I think I only got through about 10 or 11 of them. And I think I'll just make this a regular podcast format and answer your questions as I go. So I'll do part 2, maybe part 3, maybe part 4. And this one, I hope you got some good little tidbits from it. I hope I answered at least one of your questions when it comes to keto. And I save questions that I get all the time. So I have a very, very long list of questions to get to. And I hope that I was able to answer some of them. At least if you drink coffee, I know that you were probably covered with today's episode talking about coffee, boosted coffee, the best kinds of coffee, and what you put in your coffee. It's obviously a very important topic to all of us, and one that I take very seriously because I love coffee and I'm tired of people bad-mouthing coffee all the time. It's a wonderful source of caffeine, and it can be something that adds to your diet if you're in a ketogenic diet. It all depends on you personally, on the state of your health, your adrenal function, all those things. Whether you're drinking a cup a day or 10 cups a day makes a big difference. I more drink 1 or 2 per day, and I like the added metabolic boost that I get from it, as well as mental alertness, especially when I'm working on projects or writing, those kinds of things. I'm out here, I'm defending coffee today, guys, because I love coffee, and you probably have noted that, but I think it's time that we speak up a little bit for coffee because there's been a lot of negative talk about coffee lately, and I think, offended coffee. So I'm here to take it all back in today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will be back next week with Megan Ramos, our fasting expert, and she's going to answer all of your fasting questions. I put a request out for questions on my Instagram, and if you have any burning questions about fasting, be sure to leave them there because Megan and I will try to get to as many of them as we can on next week's episode. So until then, I hope you have a fat-fueled rest of your week. It was great to get to share some of the day with you here today, and I'll catch you on the next one.